So welcome to the webinar. Today, CNIB Frontier Accessibility will be exploring the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative Grant and accessible GPS navigation and wayfinding solutions for your campus. This webinar is hosted by the Network of Assistive Technologists on this Wednesday, the 24th of March, 2021. Please join me in welcoming today's presenters. First, we have Marianne Bent, who unfortunately is not able to be with us in person today, but she is an integral part of the team at Frontier Accessibility, as well as we are joined by Andrea Voss, who has been helping blind or partially sighted students for over 20 years. And as an expert in assistive devices and technologies, Andrea is the overall educational lead and manages support for English-speaking students in Ontario and Atlantic Canada. We are also joined by Gregor Barnes, the director of CNIB Frontier Accessibility. Gregor has worked on countless accessible GPS wayfinding solutions, installations, and proposals, and is proud to champion Frontier's mission to make Canada the most accessible country for those living with sight loss. So welcome, Andrea and Gregor, and thank you for joining us today. And with that said, I'd like to hand over the screen sharing to you, to the two of you, and let you start your presentation today.
Okay, great. Well, thanks very much, Doug. We're very happy to be here. And let me see if this is a successful screen share. Oh, my goodness. Having 1 second, please. This, of course, never happens until we go live.
Always works perfectly in the dry runs, the rehearsals. Don't worry, Andrea.
Yeah.
Yeah, always works perfectly until.
Okay. Righty-o.
There, it's coming through. Perfect.
Excellent. All right. So thanks very much for joining us. Sorry about that. But yes, today we're wanting to tell you a little bit about this Canada Healthy Communities Initiative and how we may be able to provide some assistance if you're interested in applying for it. And, you know, thank you very much for the introductions, Doug, but I do have just a little bit of information about Frontier. If you're familiar at all, fantastic, but if you're not, Frontier Accessibility is the social enterprise arm of CNIB Foundation. And obviously, you know, we are very concerned with accessibility. We have a mission here at CNIB, and we want to look after all the requirements that should ever come up for accessibility, those including products and technology, navigation and wayfinding, which we're going to be discussing in a little bit, workplace accommodations and assessments. We are also look after digital and website accessibility and auditing. We do braille transcription and translation, and we also provide support and training for everything that we do. Also to let you know that we are a nonprofit, so all our proceeds from sales are invested directly back into the community. So if somebody procures a service or a product from CNIB Frontier Accessibility, the profits from those sales directly affect the community for blind and low vision individuals where the sale took place. So that's just where and who we are. And now the grant. So just to let you know that this is a federal grant. There was a $31 million investment from the government of Canada to transform public spaces. This is in a sort of immediate response due to COVID-19. And this grant is actually available to nonprofits. So colleges and universities, post-secondary, absolutely part of that group. But it also can help, you know, individuals or organizations like libraries or museums or, you know, community centers, municipalities, et cetera. And there are 3 areas that this projects have to, you know, fall under. So one is to create safe and vibrant public spaces, improve mobility options, and the last is to provide innovative digital solutions to connect people and improve health. And, you know, we're interested in this obviously because part of this, the project will help to serve either the general public or a community disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, which the blind and low vision community here in Canada absolutely has. I mean, globally, but certainly we're concerned with Canadians. The details of this grant, actually, there was already one round. We actually came a little late to the party because we found out about this mid-February, and the applications were closing March 9th. But there is a second round of applications where a portal will be open to submit your online application. The application is about 7 pages long. But anyway, the application portal will open on May 14th at 9 a.m. And you can submit applications all the way up until June 25th by 5. Whatever your result is, you will receive your results by August 13th. And when you are submitting for this grant, you're submitting for funding anywhere between $5,000 and $250,000. Should you be successful, your project must be completed by June 2022. When we're talking about blind and low vision individuals during COVID, and certainly like on a college or university campus, which are not easy to navigate in the first place, but when you're navigating a space that you may or may not be completely familiar with, if you can think about how difficult it would be to ask for help, especially when people are trying to be socially distant, and just the fact you have no real idea of what 6 feet is, it's hard to know where a person is, or if there are signs with like directional arrows or something like that, those are not accessible to somebody who's blind or partially sighted. And if there's stickers on the ground, if they're not tactile, again, they really serve no purpose. So it's very difficult. And if there is any kind of tactile signage or braille or anything that's available to people, they have to find it, they have to touch it, and they are putting themselves at risk. So we're trying to decrease that. So what you're going to hear in the next part of this presentation is all about an accessible GPS and wayfinding solution that blind and partially sighted people can use, and of course anyone can use. Part of that solution incorporates a solution to open doors using the same app that you would use for your navigation and wayfinding. And this, of course, increases somebody's independence and relieves them of having to touch common areas. Why we care and how we can help. Well, obviously, this is a mission of CNIB that we're trying to increase independence and success for every blind and partially sighted Canadian. Again, we're the social enterprise arm of the CNIB, so it is our mandate and our why we were created to help enable that accessibility. And what we can do for you is partner with you to really help write that application for the grant, help create a budget based on what your navigation and GPS requirements are, what kind of spaces you may want to implement that kind of solution in. And again, we would provide that partnership. So I just have some resources here on the last slide. Really, there is a lot of information about the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative available online. They have actually provided many informative videos about how to apply, more information about how the grant is evaluated. But if you are interested in pursuing this presentation is really just to allow you to know that we would be very, very much a partner to you and helping you with that application process. So I have some links here for our website, Frontier CNIB, Blind Square, which is part of the solution that we're going to be presenting, Keto Access, which is another part of the solution. The last slide that I'm going to present is just giving you my information. So I have my email address written there, andrea.voss@frontier-cnib.ca. 416-317-9148. I am one of several commercial accessibility solution managers here in the country. So if you have a requirement, and because this is a federal grant, if you're in British Columbia, if you're in Moncton, if you're in Quebec, we can make sure, or I can make sure, that we put you in contact with the right person. So with that, let's see if I'm as good at sharing as hopefully I can stop share. Perfect. Yes. All right. So now I'm going to pass on I guess, the presentation to Gregor Barnes, who's going to help explain what is that sort of implementation of an accessible GPS navigation wayfinding solution. What does that look like? So, Gregor.
Yep. Thanks, Andrea. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm a very late stand-in here, everybody. So I do apologize if I skip some things or things like that. Marianne was unfortunately otherwise engaged and unwell and couldn't actually make this presentation. So unfortunately you have to make do with me today, but I'll try and be as informative as I can. So what I'm going to do is I want to talk about the different technologies that can come to play in the campus environment that can really assist with accessibility and independence in that area. So at CNIB Frontier, we're working with three main kind of technology partners in the navigation and wayfinding area, and I'll go through each of those in detail. We're working with Blind Square, Good Maps, and a company called Keto Access as well. So I think first of all, Blind Square, some of you may well have heard of Blind Square. It's been around for a long time now. I think the app was first developed in 2012. About 3 or 4 years ago, they added an extra element to the app where they actually started bringing indoor environments to the outdoor kind of navigation and wayfinding that they were providing. What Blind Square essentially does is it allows kind of audible signposting in an environment, and that can be either outdoors or indoors. It uses 3 different things to trigger the messages that it plays, and that is it can use Bluetooth beacons, it can use a GPS point outside that you can decide where that is going to be, and it will use 3D barcodes as well. And with those 3 different pieces, we can add audible signposts right the way across a campus, within buildings. You know, we've actually installed Blind Square probably across 300 different locations in Canada now, and we're getting very used to how to do that. Now, I think the thing to add there is the messages we put in there, it's not just an audible signpost, it goes a lot further than that. We use a lot of the experience and the knowledge of CNIB and of our colleagues over in vision loss rehabilitation, and we use that orientation and mobility knowledge to really design a holistic solution that allows somebody to navigate around an area, a park, a campus, you know, a building, whatever it might be. So we actually, you know, just for example, if you were going to walk into a building that had Blind Square enabled, as soon as you walk in, you might an app on your smartphone would encounter a beacon, and it would trigger some messaging that would automatically play. And that might be something like, now in building L, first floor, main lobby, elevator 4 meters at 12 o'clock, then on right, washrooms and classrooms, L1004 to L1007, and it would kind of give you that information about what was there. The great thing about Blind Square as well is it's got 2 messages in there. It's got a primary message that automatically plays as soon as you get close to a beacon, or as soon as you get close to a GPS point. It will automatically play that first message, which is usually the high level detailed stuff that we want to get across first, because you've got to remember we're borrowing the hearing of the person with sight loss, and we don't want to take up too much of their time because they're using that hearing in getting around and being mobile and being independent. So that first message is short, it's sharp, it's concise, it tells them exactly what they need to know about the local area, about where there might be any safety hazards, anything like that. And then there is a second message, and it's an opt-in message. The second message, because the person's opted into it, you know, we can make the assumption that they're comfortable in the space that they're in, they want more information, and we can put a lot more information in the secondary message. The secondary message can have all sorts of information about opening times or class times or anything like that, we can link off on that secondary message to actually go off and get automated data that might be through an API. So in transit settings, we can actually go off and start getting bus times and all of that type of stuff as well. So it's really quite a neat solution that can bring a lot of different things together and can really kind of add to the accessibility in an area. I mean, we've done lots of different installations of Blind Square now, everywhere from parks and outdoor spaces. We've recently won an RFP with Alberta Parks, and we're doing an installation over there in three of their parks to create accessible walking trails that will let you know where benches are and trash receptacles are and where steps are and where your options are to go in different directions. You know, we've also rolled out across one of the large bank networks. We've done community centers, we've done libraries, we've done all sorts of things. So we're really excited to have this as a technology that we can use. So that's Blind Square. The second technology that I wanted to talk very quickly about was a technology by a company called Keto Access. And Keto Access came about, they got into the kind of the accessible crosswalk technology, and they found a way to use Bluetooth low energy beacons interacting with a smartphone app. Well, they sold off the patent to that technology to a big APS, a big crosswalk manufacturer down in the States. And we're hoping that means that technology starts expanding much larger than it ever could do. So you'll probably see that in the next few years. But what Keto Access have done now is they've come up with a way to interact with the built environment through those beacons. And what they've done is they've created this piece that you can put inside an automated door opener that actually allows you to interact with that automated door without having to find the button, without having to go and press that button. And you actually get an audible message as well, telling you about whereabouts you are and whereabouts the door is. So you can get some audible descriptions in there too, but you're also getting the chance to be able to open that door. And there's a little speaker that plays as well, so that you know when the door's open or when it's closed or when it's locked for some reason and that type of stuff. So that's the Keto Access technology. And the great thing about Keto Access is they've been working with Blind Square as well. So it's a fully integrated solution. So if you're using the Blind Square app as a blind and partially sighted individual, it will let you know that the door that you're approaching is actually a Keto Access accessible door, and you can just swipe your phone and it will start opening the door, and it will let you audibly know from a speaker on the door that the door is opening for you. Now, obviously, for anybody else who may want to use the door opener from a mobility perspective, because obviously we do know that those buttons aren't often easy to find or aren't easy to actually utilize. You can either use the Blind Square app, or they have their own app, which is called the Open Up app, where you can literally just use it for the door opening technology. So that's Keto Access. That works in conjunction with Blind Square as well, and it's literally a 20-minute process to put that Bluetooth low energy beacon inside an already automated door, and it makes it into an accessible door usable via a smartphone app. The final technology that I'm gonna talk about is even newer, and this is a technology called Good Maps. We're just starting to put together the first installation in the country in our head office at the CNIB to test out the functionality of this. It's a new technology. It uses a smartphone app in a similar way to Blind Square does, but it's from the APH down in the States, the American Printing House from the Blind. They developed this technology and they spun it off into this new company called Good Maps, and we're representing them in Canada. The difference with Good Maps is that you actually take a LiDAR 3D map of the building, and then it uses camera positioning to find you exactly in the building. And then you can do turn-by-turn navigation to any point of interest or any location in the building that you want to get to. And it actually shows this on a 3D map as well for the site. For those with sight, you can see where you are on the map and stuff like that. But it's actually been built from the ground up initially as a blind and partially sighted app, so for accessibility and turn-by-turn navigation. So this is brand new. we're just working through it. We've been testing it. It is live right now, and we're just starting to kind of talk about this as a new technology for kind of for navigation and wayfinding. We think that it's kind of complementary to Blind Square. Blind Square is an easier installation. Good Maps takes more time and is slightly more expensive. If it's a big complicated space, we would automatically start recommending Good Maps probably is the primary way to use, the primary solution. If it's a smaller space, smaller buildings, then we would recommend Blind Square. As who we are in CNIB Frontier, we're more interested in what the solution will do for somebody living with sight loss than we are about, we really want to design it for the end user. So once we get in and we start talking to an organization, we'll let you know which of those technologies is kind of the best for the space that you're in. But yeah, we will be starting to install Good Maps in different locations within the next month or so. We're that close to actually starting doing it, and we have kind of the LiDAR backpack that you need to do the 3D mapping, so it looks like a Ghostbusters backpack with a thing stuck above your head, and it kind of takes this kind of LiDAR map of a 3D image of the whole building and processes it so that there's literally a full 3D map of the space where it is, and then from that we start adding all of the other stuff in, and you can start doing the navigation. So yeah, I guess timeline for all of these things, Blind Square can be a quick install. For a smallish building, we can be literally in and out within a week and do all of the messaging and everything like that. For Good Maps, it's a bit of a longer process for a building. It's probably a 2 to 3 week process because we need to go in, LiDAR map the building, send it off for it to actually all of the data to be processed and combined into the 3D image, and then we start adding points of interest and the other type of stuff, and there's some testing involved. So it's a little bit longer. Keto Access is relatively simple. If you have an installer who looks after your automated doors, or whether you need one, it's a 20-minute process maximum to put that in. So that's an idea of the timelines, and with that, because we're at about 12:40, I think it's time for us to open it up for some questions, as I'm sure there's a few out there.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Sorry, go ahead, Andrea.
Well, I just see that Jim, hi Jim. Jim has a question about Blind Square. If you're sighted and you're using the application, is it just a series of, turn here, or, what is the messaging, or is there a map available as well?
So Blind Square does not have a map within the application itself. It is predominantly for blind and partially sighted users, although we have found that it is hugely beneficial for we've had a lot of people from the Alzheimer's community and people like that coming in and saying it's great because it lets you know kind of where you are. It reinforces where you are and gives you messages as to what's happening. It does have visually, it does show up the messages that are coming through. So if you're walking through a building and you get to the elevators, it will flash up and say you're at the elevator bay, and it will give you directions around you, like an extra set of signposts. So if you're if you have problems looking at signposts or anything like that, on a reinforcement of where you are, or if you want that extra depth of information that Blind Square can provide in that secondary message that I talked about, then it has all of that, but it doesn't have a map. Good Maps does. Good Maps has been built so that it can be really used by everybody. It's they came at this saying, we want to build something for blind and partially sighted people, but we know the only way that we'll make this ubiquitous and common is by making it work for everybody. So they've come at it with, it will have a map in there, it will show turn by turn directions on a map for you to get someone, so it can be used as orientation and mobility for everybody.
Thank you for answering that, Gregor. I just remind people to add their questions into the chat as we progress fairly close to the end of our session today. And those who wish to ask by voice, by all means to do that by unmuting the microphone. And I noticed that Leo has unmuted. So go ahead, Leo.
Well, thank you very much. I'm familiar with all three of these technologies, but I just wanted to be clear, near maps, is that a further development of what came out of APH, the Nearby Explorer project with Mike May?
That is exactly correct. Yes, Nearby Explorer was its previous iteration. They've renamed it as Good Maps, and they've kind of spun off into a separate company from the APH. Although I think they're also part of I think they're still fully owned by the APH, but they are, and Mike May is still involved with them. Absolutely, he's part of the Good Maps. The
He's
Good
an
Maps.
ambassador or something, isn't he? An
Yes,
ambassador? Yeah.
But
yep,
this is solid, because this really shows, especially with Blind Square and even the keys to access, and I know the original developers of that, this is a solid combination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the one thing I might not have mentioned is that Good Maps are also working with Keto Access. So the automated door openers will very soon, that technology, that functionality will be available within the Good Maps app as well. So, you know, that's the one thing that we're trying to do here is make sure that these relationships work. So even with Good Maps and Blind Square, there's going to be a handover. So if you're using Good Maps and you walk into a Blind Square enabled facility, it will let you know, and it will let you actually very quickly switch from one app to the other, so that, you know, although it's not quite seamless, it's as close, you know, you don't have to go searching for another app, or you don't know that you've just walked outside of coverage and something else is gonna help you. So we're trying to make sure that they all kind of play nicely together and integrate together, so that, you know, the end user experience is what we really care about. And you know, if you have to flip around apps, or don't even know if something is covered, you know, that's not what we want to happen.
Oh, it's solid. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. And Jay has entered a question into the chat here, asking, does Blind Square offer assistance in multiple languages?
It absolutely does. Yes, it works in, I think they have it working in at least 23 different languages now. We predominantly work in English and French. Obviously, we design everything in English, and then we use a specialized translator who will translate it into French, because obviously we're not really using grammatical terms when we're designing our messages, because they need to be short and sharp. And sometimes the actual punctuation is really important that we put in there, because in the secondary message it allows you to fast forward and rewind if there's a lot of information. So if you have kind of a control, you can flip through the information quickly to get to where you want to go, and that's designed in the message with the punctuation. But yes, it absolutely uses different languages. We have different accents within Blind Square, so if you want to speed it up, sometimes, for example, a lot of people use the Australian accent, which isn't mine. I'm English, just in case everybody thought. But yeah, the Australian accent apparently is really good for being sped up. So you can speed it up to like 4 times and still get the information that's in there. You can, you know, and that's got a lot to do, you know, people living with sight loss tend to get used to being able to speed things up and take the information that they need, because it's one of the primary ways that they bring in information.
Perfect. Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Gregor. Just a final reminder here, we're just about out of time. Does anybody else have questions? Please enter them into the chat, or unmute your microphone, and we'll bring you on by voice. Leo, I noticed that your microphone is still unmuted. Is there
No,
additional?
Trouble putting it down.
No, not a problem. I just didn't want to make any judge or assumptions there.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm just giving it a few more moments here if there's any other questions, or if anybody wants to unmute themselves to be able to ask. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to take the screen sharing back and get us ready. We're trying to get as much information in as possible on this very short webinar here today over the lunch and learn type session. And I know that there's an awful lot of information that Andrea and Gregor could provide. They could probably do an entire couple hours on this with ease. And I encourage everybody to keep an eye out on the Network of Assistive Technologists website for our events, because we do have some upcoming sessions with CNIB where there will be some additional information about wayfinding and some of the services that CNIB offers to those who are blind or partially sighted. So. And there was a question just put into the chat about whether this recording will be shared out, and yes, it will, for those who are registered, as well as it'll be posted on the N.O.A.T website. So I'm not seeing any other unmuted microphones or questions. So at this point, I want to just kind of, again, in respect for our time and for all of us getting back to our 1 o'clock appointments and meetings, I do want to thank very much Andrea and Gregor for your participation here and sharing this information with us. It's no doubt it's going to further assist each of us in better serving those that we support, the communities we are part of, and some of us as individuals. And it's phenomenal, the stuff that you guys shared today. I've known a little bit about it, but now I know a lot more about it, and I also know that I don't know very much about it. So quite interesting overall, to say the least. And again, thank you for sharing that information with us. And a reminder, if anybody is looking for assistance with the grant application, by all means, reach out to Andrea. There's her contact information is in the chat there, as well as it'll be a part of the replay and replay page on our website for this event. So definitely encourage you to reach out. Andrea is a wealth of knowledge, and I think she's just eager, sitting there waiting to help everybody get their proposals through and try and help get you the funding to make your campuses or your institutions much more accessible to everyone, not just those with vision difficulties. As we've heard, it's helpful for those with Alzheimer's and various other mobility related and other disabilities. So just in closing, Andrea, Gregor, were there any final comments or thoughts that you wanted to share?
No, just thanks so much for having us. This is a fantastic opportunity. And as Doug had said, if you have any questions, my contact information is there. I can certainly provide you with any answers should I not be able to answer them. But we have wonderful resources at CNIB Frontier, and we'll make sure that you get them.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for letting us attend and speak about these things. It's it's a privilege and an honor. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. And again, thank you both. And lastly, for everyone here today, thank you for joining us. And remember, you can't spell education without AT.
The chat meeting chain Super Sense today at 1:00 p.m. https://superior/j/9 839 5956